Hi, this is Ken of Rist Innovations. Today, let's talk about pocket hole joinery. I've tried to put together a comprehensive video to cover all aspects of this joinery. The best times to use this application, the different types of tools and jigs and special screws that are needed, the best way to clamp parts together to get a good fit, and how to disguise the holes depending on the design of your project. So let's go ahead and get started. There are many ways to connect two pieces of wood together. There is the traditional joinery such as dovetails and mortise and tenons. However, these joints can be difficult and can take a fair amount of time to make. There are a variety of easier ways to join wood, such as dowels, biscuits, dominoes, and pocket hole screws. Today, let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly about pocket hole joinery.
So honey, what exactly are pocket holes?
So it's a great way to connect wood quickly and strongly, and here's an example of a little cabinet I made with nothing but pocket holes. To join these two pieces of wood, you want to make a pocket hole that will drive the screw into the main part of the second workpiece to create a strong joint. In this second case, driving the screw into the end of the second workpiece will make a very weak joint. The idea behind pocket hole joinery is to make a shallow angle hole or pocket in one piece of wood using a special step drill bit, and then use a special screw that has a large flat head and a self-tapping thread. You want to have the tip of the screws go into the edge grain or face grain of the piece of wood that you're joining to. You want to avoid screwing into the end grain because the end grain is weak, because the fibers are like straws, because that's how water travels up the length of the tree. When you screw into the end grain, the screw can't get a good grip due to the fiber direction. The drill bit is special because it has a step in it to cut a pocket for the head and shaft of the screw, and then a smaller bit for the threaded portion of the screw. The pocket screws are special because they have a large, flat head that matches the hole from the special drill bit. They also have a self-tapping feature on the tip so you don't have to drill a pilot hole into the second piece of wood. The length of the screw depends on the thickness of the wood you are joining. For a 3/4 inch thick material, a 1 1/4 inch long screw is the right choice. You don't want a screw that is too long, or else it could poke through the other side of your workpiece. Here is a selection of screws. A 1 inch long screw is for 1/2 inch thick material. And as I mentioned, the 1 1/4 long screw is for a 3/4 inch thick material. I also want to mention that there are coarse threads and fine threads. The fine threads are for hardwoods, such as cherry, oak, and maple. The coarse threads are for softwoods, such as pine, and for plywood. The blue screw is made for outdoor projects because it has an anti-rust coating. The 1.5 inch is for 1 inch thick material. The 2 inch screw is for 1 1/4 inch thick material, and the 2.5 inch screw is for 1.5 inch thick material. I don't recommend that you use regular screws because they tend to go deeper into the wood because their head acts like a wedge. Because of that, it's also very easy to strip the wood fibers such that the screw then is not able to hold the pieces together. There are several brands of pocket hole jigs on the market. Craig is a very popular brand. I decided to buy the Masca brand because it's all metal and I read some good reviews about them. I like the quality of the all-metal construction of the Masca jig. I also purchased a mounting board from Creative Tool Company, which keeps everything organized, and it's very easy to mount to my assembly table using these bench dogs. You adjust the jig based on the thickness of wood you are adding the pocket hole to. It has a clamp to hold the workpiece, and the mounting board has pockets and magnets to hold all the key parts of the jig. When I first started using the jig, I noticed that the clamp had a hard plastic end on it, and it was denting the wood. So I attached a rubber face to the clamp, head, and that fixed the problem. So after you have adjusted the jig for the thickness of the wood, you need to adjust the stop collar on the drill bit so it drills to the correct depth into the wood. The depth gauge is used to set the correct position of the stop collar, and I tighten it with an Allen wrench. I also recommend to use the dust collector attachment because drilling the pocket holes creates a lot of sawdust. This will keep things cleaner, make your drill bit last longer, and you just get a cleaner cut. The jig also has these sliding extensions that support larger workpieces. To drill the pocket holes, clamp your workpiece into the jig and then set your drill to a high speed and drill the hole until the stop collar reaches the jig. I like to use a pecking motion, which is pulling the drill in and out to help remove the wood chips. To join the two pieces of wood together, you need to clamp them together so that you get a nice aligned joint. For butt joints, I use either this special clamp, or actually I prefer my assembly table with my clamps that fit my table. The screws have a square head, so most jigs come with a long square driver bit. The important thing is to set your drill at a low speed and use the screw low clutch setting so you don't over tighten the screws, which could cause you to strip the wood fibers and even have the screw go too deep into the wood, possibly coming out the other side. For things like tabletops and door joints, I use glue. The nice thing about pocket screws is they act as clamps, so in case you don't have enough clamps, the pocket screws act as a great clamp. The other nice thing about pocket screws is you can take your project apart if you don't use glue. This makes it easy to have modular furniture or cabinetry that you can take apart into smaller pieces. For a 90-degree box joint, I use this special clamp that one end goes into the pocket hole and clamps the pieces together. Then I attach a screw to the other pocket and then remove the clamp. I also like to use my assembly table to build box joints for cabinets because I can use a variety of jigs and clamps to hold everything together. Here's an example of a poor box joint because the pocket hole's direction are pointing to the end of the second workpiece instead of toward the main portion of the workpiece. This makes for a very weak joint. The pocket holes are ugly, so the key is to try to design your project so you won't see them. For things like doors, you have to find a way to hide the pocket holes, so there are three main ways that I have tested: pre-made plugs, dowels, and putty. The pre-made plugs are easy to glue into the pocket holes, but I noticed that they have a loose fit, and you have to use some putty to fill the gaps after the glue dries. The dowels had a tighter fit, but the extra step was I needed to cut them flush with a Japanese trim saw, and I still needed to use a small amount of putty to fill some very small gaps. I also tried this water-based putty to fill the holes, which worked, but it took a long time for the putty to dry completely due to the size of the hole. If you're going to paint your project, then I think any of these three ways to plug or fill the holes will work just fine. It will be much harder to disguise these holes if you plan to stain your project. Pocket hole joinery. Let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is that it's easy to learn and do. It has reasonably strong joints. Low-cost tools are required. You can take projects apart if glue wasn't used. And it can act as clamps. The bad is it's not the strongest joint, and I would not use it if the joint was under a lot of stress, like on certain chair designs, etc. The ugly. The pocket holes are really quite ugly and need to be plugged if they're going to be seen in the final project. So I'd really appreciate it if you'd let me know in the comments below if I've captured everything that you had questions about regarding pocket hole joinery. On my next video, I'll cover how I use pocket hole joinery to build this little cabinet right here. And when that video is available, that link will be here. In the meantime, if you'd like to watch my most popular table saw video, that link is here. Thanks for watching.